The divorce papers landed on the kitchen table with a soft thud, but the sound echoed in my ears like a thunderclap. Jamie, my Jamie of 15 years, stood across from me, her face tight, almost determined. Not sad, not regretful, just done. I'm filing for divorce, Mark. Her voice was flat, devoid of any of the warmth I'd once cherished. I stared at the crisp white documents, the legal jargon blurring before my eyes. What? What is this? I managed to stammer. Exactly what it looks like. She crossed her arms, her gaze unwavering. I can't do this anymore. Can't do what? What are you even talking about? I was floundering, desperately trying to grasp some semblance of understanding. 15 years. 15 years we'd built a life together. A home, a family. Or so I thought. I'm tired, Mark. Tired of carrying everything. Tired of you being useless. The word hung in the air, a poisonous barb piercing my heart. Useless. That's how she saw me? After everything? After all the sacrifices, the compromises, the unwavering support I'd given her? Useless? Jamie, how can you say that? I pushed back from the table, the chair scraping against the tile floor. Look at you, Mark. You're content to just exist. You're stuck in that dead-end job. You never take initiative. You're just there. The words stung, but beneath the sting, a flicker of something else began to ignite within me. Anger. A cold, simmering anger that had been dormant for years. And what about you, Jamie? All those late nights at the office? The business trips? My voice was rising, cracking with disbelief and dawning realization. She didn't flinch. Don't even try to make this about me, Mark. This is about you, about your inability to be the man I need. Then came the blow that truly knocked the wind out of me. I'm moving out, Mark. I'm moving in with someone else. I was silent, numb. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Who? I finally choked out. His name is Ethan. He's younger, more ambitious, more alive. She said it with such casual cruelty, as if she were discussing the weather. Ethan. The name felt like a physical blow. I knew an Ethan from her office. A young, ambitious intern. My blood ran cold. Jamie picked up her purse, her eyes devoid of emotion. Don't worry, Mark. You'll be fine. You always are. You'll just drift along. But I need more. I deserve more. She paused at the door, a cruel smile playing on her lips. You won't make it without me, Mark. You need me to function. You'll see. Then she left. Just like that? 15 years. Reduced to a few cutting words and a slammed door. I sat there for hours, the divorce papers mocking me from the table. Useless. That's what she thought. That's what she believed. And what hurt the most was, deep down, a part of me wondered if she was right. But as the initial shock began to wear off, something else started to emerge. A spark! A flicker of defiance. A quiet, resolute. Watch me. The first few days were a blur. I went through the motions. Going to work, eating, or rather, picking at meals, trying to sleep in the empty bed that suddenly felt vast and cold. The silence in the house was deafening, broken only by the occasional tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. A clock Jamie had always loved. My coworkers noticed something was wrong, of course. I was usually the easygoing, jovial guy in the office, always ready with a joke or a helping hand. Now I was withdrawn, irritable, and prone to staring blankly at my computer screen for extended periods. You okay, Mark? My colleague David asked one afternoon. He was a good guy, a solid friend. I forced a smile. Just a bit under the weather, David. Nothing to worry about. He raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. Come on, Mark. We've known each other for years. You can tell me. I hesitated for a moment, then the dam broke. I poured out the whole story, the divorce papers, Jamie's accusations, the younger lover, the crushing feeling of inadequacy. David listened patiently, his expression growing increasingly grim. When I finished, he clapped me on the shoulder. "That's rough, Mark. Really rough. But don't let her get to you. Don't let her define you. Easy for you to say," I mumbled. "She's probably right. I am useless. I haven't achieved anything. I'm stuck in this dead-end job." David shook his head. "That's bullshit, Mark. You're a good guy. You're reliable. You're kind. Those are qualities that matter. And you're not stuck. You're choosing to be. You have the power to change things." His words resonated with me. Maybe he was right. Maybe I had let myself become complacent. Maybe I had let Jamie's negativity chip away at my self-worth. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing, replaying the events of the past few days, analyzing Jamie's words, David's encouragement. And then a thought occurred to me, a thought that would change everything. Jamie was so sure I would fail without her. She was so confident I was incapable of achieving anything on my own. Well, I would prove her wrong. I would become the man she never thought I could be. I would become successful. I would become someone she regretted losing. It wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about proving to myself that I was more than just useless. It was about reclaiming my life, my identity, my self-respect. I started small. I dusted off an old guitar that had been gathering dust in the attic for years. I started practicing again, slowly regaining my calluses and my skills. I remembered how much I loved playing, how it used to bring me so much joy. I also started researching online courses, looking for ways to improve my skills at work, to make myself more valuable. I found a course in project management that seemed promising. It was expensive, but I decided to take the plunge. And then, I did something that truly terrified me. I signed up for a dating app. It wasn't because I was looking for a replacement for Jamie. It was because I needed to prove to myself that I was still desirable, that I was still capable of attracting someone. The thought of putting myself out there again, of facing rejection and potential heartbreak, filled me with dread. But I knew I had to do it. I had to push myself outside of my comfort zone. I created a profile, carefully selecting photos that made me look my best, which was harder than I thought. I wrote a short bio, trying to be honest and engaging without sounding desperate or pathetic. And then, I waited. The first few days were agonizing. I checked the app constantly, hoping for a message, a like, anything. But nothing happened. I started to feel discouraged, to wonder if Jamie was right after all. But then, one evening, as I was strumming my guitar, a notification popped up on my phone. Someone had liked my profile. Her name was Sarah. Sarah. Her profile picture showed a woman with warm hazel eyes and a genuine smile. She looked kind, intelligent, and interesting. I hesitated for a moment, then clicked on her profile. She was a teacher, a volunteer at a local animal shelter, and a lover of hiking and live music. We had a lot in common. I sent her a message. Just a simple, "Hi Sarah, your profile caught my eye. I'm Mark." One didn't expect a response. I figured she probably got hundreds of messages a day. But to my surprise, she replied almost immediately. "Hi Mark, thanks for reaching out. I liked your profile too. You seem like a cool guy." We exchanged messages for a while that evening, talking about our interests, our jobs, our lives. I was surprised by how easy it was to talk to her, how comfortable I felt. After a few days of messaging, I asked her if she wanted to meet for coffee. She said yes. I was nervous as hell. It had been years since I'd been on a date. I spent hours agonizing over what to wear, what to say, how to act. I wanted to make a good impression, but I also wanted to be myself. When I finally met Sarah at the coffee shop, I was struck by how beautiful she was in person. Her eyes were even warmer and brighter than in her profile picture. We talked for hours that day, about everything and nothing. I told her about my job, my hobbies, my passion for music. I even told her briefly about my recent divorce. She listened patiently, without judgment, her eyes filled with empathy. That sounds really tough, Mark, she said when I finished. I'm sorry you're going through that. Thanks, I said. It is tough, but I'm trying to move on. I'm trying to build a new life for myself. I admire that, she said. It takes courage to do that. We talked for so long that the coffee shop started to empty out. Finally, the barista came over and told us they were closing. As we walked out of the coffee shop, I felt a surge of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could find happiness again. Maybe I could build a new life for myself. I had a really great time, Mark, Sarah said as we stood by our cars. I'd love to do this again sometime. Me too, I said. I'd really like that. We exchanged numbers and said goodbye. As I drove home, I couldn't stop smiling. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I continued to talk to Sarah, both online and in person. We went on more dates, to the movies, to a concert, to a hiking trail in the nearby mountains. I found myself falling for her. She was kind, intelligent, funny, and supportive. She made me feel good about myself, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Meanwhile, I was also making progress at work. I was excelling in the project management course, and I was starting to apply what I was learning to my job. I was taking on more responsibility, volunteering for new projects, and generally making myself more visible. My boss, Mr. Thompson, started to notice. He called me into his office one day. Mark, I've been really impressed with your performance lately, he said. You've really stepped up. I'm considering you for a promotion. I was stunned. A promotion? After all these years of being overlooked and underappreciated? Thank you, Mr. Thompson, the first said. I appreciate that. I'm working hard and I'm committed to this company. I can see that, he said. Keep up the good work, Mark. You have a bright future here. I left Mr. Thompson's office feeling like I was on top of the world. Everything was finally starting to fall into place. I was making progress in my personal life, in my career, and in my own self-improvement. Jamie was wrong. I wasn't useless. I was capable of achieving great things. But then, just as things were starting to look up, something unexpected happened. My phone rang. It was Jamie. I stared at the phone, my heart pounding in my chest. Jamie? Why was she calling me? After all this time? I hesitated for a moment, then answered the phone. Hello? I said, my voice trembling slightly. Mark? Her voice was hesitant, almost fragile. It was a voice I hadn't heard in months, a voice that brought back a flood of memories, both good and bad. Yes, Jamie, it's me, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. What do you want? I just wanted to talk, she said. Talk? About what? I asked, my anger simmering beneath the surface. About how useless I am? About how much happier you are with Ethan? No, Mark, it's not like that, she said. I made a mistake, I scoffed. A mistake? You left me for a younger man, Jamie. You told me I was worthless. How is that a mistake? I know, Mark, I know, she said, her voice cracking. I was wrong. I was selfish. I didn't appreciate what I had. And what, you appreciate it now? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Now that I'm finally starting to move on? Now that I'm finally starting to be happy? Please, Mark, just listen to me, she said. Things aren't going so well with Ethan. He's not who I thought he was. He's controlling. He's demanding. He doesn't treat me the way you did. I was silent for a moment, trying to process what she was saying. Was she really saying that she regretted leaving me? That she wanted me back? And what am I supposed to do with that, Jamie? I asked, finally breaking the silence. Am I supposed to feel sorry for you? Am I supposed to welcome you back with open arms after everything you've done? I don't expect you to forgive me, Mark, she said. I know I don't deserve it, but I just wanted you to know. I'm sorry. I truly am. She hung up the phone. I stood there, staring at the phone in my hand, my mind reeling. Jamie wanted me back? After everything? I couldn't believe it. I thought about Sarah, about the progress I was making at work, about the new life I was building for myself. And then I thought about Jamie, about the years we had spent together, about the love we had once shared. It was all so confusing. I decided to talk to David. He had been a good friend to me throughout this whole ordeal. He would know what to do. I called him and told him everything that had happened. He listened patiently, as always. "So, what do you think I should do, David?" I asked when I finished. "That's a tough one, Mark," he said. "On the one hand, Jamie hurt you deeply. She doesn't deserve your forgiveness. On the other hand, you spent 15 years with her. That's a long time to just throw away." "I know," I said. "That's what makes it so difficult." "Ultimately, it's your decision, Mark," David said. "You have to do what you think is best for you. But I will say this, be careful. Jamie has a way of manipulating people. Don't let her play you again." David's words resonated with me. He was right. Jamie was manipulative. She had always been good at getting what she wanted. I thanked David for his advice and hung up the phone. I knew what I had to do. I had to talk to Jamie. I called Jamie back the next day. She answered on the second ring. "Mark?" she said, her voice hopeful. "Jamie, we need to talk," I said, my voice firm. "I know," she said. "Can we meet?" "Yes," I said. "Where?" We agreed to meet at a neutral location, a park near my house. I didn't want her coming back to the house. It was my space now, my sanctuary. When I arrived at the park, Jamie was already there, sitting on a bench overlooking the lake. She looked different, thinner, paler, more vulnerable. I sat down beside her. "So," I said, breaking the silence, "you wanted to talk?" "Yes," she said, her eyes filled with tears. "Mark, I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. I don't know what I was thinking." "You were thinking you deserved better," I said, my voice flat. "You were thinking I was useless. You were thinking you could find happiness with someone else." "I was wrong, Mark," she said. "So wrong. Ethan is not the man I thought he was. He's controlling, jealous, and he doesn't care about me. I miss you, Mark. I miss our life together." "You miss being comfortable," I corrected her. "You miss having someone to take care of you. You don't miss me, Jamie. You miss what I provided." "That's not true, Mark," she said, her voice pleading. "I miss your kindness, your humor, your support. I miss our conversations, our laughter, our love." "Love?" I scoffed. "Is that what you call it? Leaving me for a younger man? Calling me useless?" "I didn't mean it, Mark," she said. I was angry. I was frustrated. I didn't know what else to say. "You knew exactly what you were doing, Jamie," I said. "You wanted to hurt me. You wanted to make me feel small. And you succeeded." She started to cry. "I know, Mark, I know. And I'm so sorry. Please, can you ever forgive me?" I looked at her, really looked at her. I saw the pain in her eyes, the regret in her face. And for a moment, I felt a flicker of pity. But then I remembered everything she had put me through. The humiliation, the heartbreak, the self-doubt. And the pity quickly faded. "I don't know, Jamie," I said, finally breaking the silence. "I need time to think." "Please, Mark," she said, reaching for my hand. "Don't give up on us. We can make this work." "I know we can." I pulled my hand away. "I'm not sure there is Anus anymore, Jamie. You destroyed that when you left." I stood up. "I need to go," I said. "I'll think about what you said." I turned and walked away, leaving her sitting on the bench, crying. As I walked home, my mind was a jumbled mess of emotions. Anger, sadness, confusion, pity. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to give her another chance. After all, we had spent 15 years together. We had shared so much. But another part of me knew that it would be a mistake. Jamie had hurt me deeply. Could I ever truly trust her again? Could I ever truly forget what she had done? And what about Sarah? I was starting to fall for her. She was kind, supportive, and she made me feel good about myself. Could I really throw that away for a woman who had already proven that she couldn't be trusted? I didn't know what to do. I decided to talk to Sarah. She deserved to know what was going on. I called Sarah that evening and asked her if we could meet. I needed to be honest with her, even if it meant risking our budding relationship. We met at a quiet wine bar, a place we both enjoyed. As soon as I sat down, I could tell something was wrong. Sarah's usually bright eyes were clouded with concern. "What's wrong, Mark?" she asked, her voice gentle. "You seem upset." I took a deep breath. "I need to tell you something," I said. "Something about my ex-wife." I told her everything. About Jamie's phone call, about our meeting at the park, about the emotions I was struggling with. Sarah listened patiently, her expression unchanging. When I finished, she reached across the table and took my hand. "That sounds really difficult, Mark," she said. "I can understand why you're feeling so confused." "I don't know what to do, Sarah," I said. "Part of me wants to give Jamie another chance, but I'm afraid of getting hurt again, and I don't want to lose you." "I really like you, Sarah, more than I thought possible." Sarah smiled. "I like you too, Mark," she said. "A lot. But I understand that you need to figure things out with Jamie. I won't pressure you. Just promise me you'll be honest with yourself and with me." "I promise," I said. "Okay," she said. "Then I'll support you, whatever you decide. But I will say this. You deserve to be happy, Mark. You deserve to be with someone who appreciates you, who values you, who loves you for who you are. Don't settle for anything less." Her words hit me hard. She was right. I deserved to be happy. I deserved to be with someone who loved me unconditionally. And deep down, I knew that Jamie wasn't that person. She had proven that she was capable of hurting me, of betraying me. I couldn't go back to that. I wouldn't go back to that. "Thank you, Sarah," I said, squeezing her hand. "You're right. I know what I need to do." I took a deep breath and made my decision. I was going to move on. I was going to build a new life for myself, with Sarah, if she was willing, and I was going to leave Jamie in the past. I called Jamie the next day and told her my decision. "Jamie, I've thought about what you said," I said, my voice firm, "and I've decided that I can't give you another chance. I'm sorry, but it's over. I can't trust you anymore. I need to move on." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, Jamie started to cry. "Please, Mark, don't do this," she said, her voice pleading. "I'll change. I promise. I'll be the woman you want me to be." "It's too late, Jamie," I said. "You had your chance. You blew it. I wish you all the best, but I can't be with you anymore." I hung up the phone. It was over. I felt a pang of sadness, a lingering sense of loss, but beneath the sadness, I also felt a sense of relief. I had made the right decision. I had chosen my own happiness. I called Sarah and told her everything. She was supportive and understanding. "I'm proud of you, Mark," she said. "You made the right choice." "Thanks, Sarah," I said. "I couldn't have done it without you." We spent the rest of the evening together, talking, laughing, and simply enjoying each other's company. I knew that I was lucky to have Sarah in my life. She was a true friend, a confidant, and a potential partner. I was excited about the future. I was excited about building a new life with Sarah. And I was excited about proving to myself and to Jamie that I was capable of anything. With Jamie officially out of my life, I focused on rebuilding myself and nurturing my relationship with Sarah. I threw myself into my project management course, acing every exam and impressing my instructor. At work, I continued to excel, taking on new challenges and exceeding expectations. Mr. Thompson called me into his office again, a wide smile on his face. "Mark, I'm happy to announce that you're getting the promotion. Senior Project Manager. You deserve it." The promotion came with a significant raise, a corner office, and a newfound sense of respect from my colleagues. It was validation that I was on the right track, that I was capable of achieving success. Meanwhile, My relationship with Sarah continued to blossom. We explored new restaurants, went to concerts, and even took a weekend trip to the coast. I discovered a side of myself I never knew existed, adventurous, spontaneous, and genuinely happy. One evening, as we were sitting on my patio, sipping wine and watching the sunset, Sarah turned to me, her eyes sparkling. "You know, Mark," she said, "I've never seen you this happy before. You're like a different person." I smiled. "I am a different person, Sarah. You've helped me become that person. You've shown me what it's like to be truly loved and appreciated." We shared a kiss that sealed our commitment to each other. Life was good. In fact, life was great. I had a fulfilling career, a loving partner, and a bright future ahead of me. But just when I thought things couldn't get any better, something unexpected happened. My phone rang. It was Jamie. Again. I groaned inwardly as I saw Jamie's name flash across my phone screen. I had hoped that she would finally accept my decision and move on, but it seemed she wasn't ready to let go. I debated ignoring the call, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. I had to confront her, to tell her once and for all that it was over. I answered the phone. "Jamie, the first told you, it's over. Please stop calling me." Her voice was frantic, almost hysterical. "Mark, you don't understand. I need you. Ethan left me. He took all my money and disappeared." My initial reaction was a flicker of sympathy. But then I remembered everything she had put me through, and the sympathy quickly evaporated. "I'm sorry to hear that, Jamie," I said, my voice cold. "But it's not my problem. You made your choice. Now you have to live with the consequences." "But Mark, I have nowhere else to go. I'm broke, I'm alone, I'm desperate. Please, just let me come back. I promise I'll be different." "No, Jamie," I said. "I'm not going to let you back into my life. I've moved on. I'm happy. And I'm not going to risk that for you." I hung up the phone. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. The phone calls started coming constantly, day and night. Jamie would call me from different numbers, using different voices, begging me to take her back. At first, I tried to ignore the calls, but they were relentless. They disrupted my work, my sleep, my time with Sarah. I started to feel harassed, stalked. I changed my phone number, but somehow, Jamie managed to get my new number. The calls started again. I considered getting a restraining order, but I hesitated. I didn't want to escalate the situation, to make things even worse. I talked to Sarah about it. She was understandably concerned. "This is getting out of hand, Mark," she said. "You need to do something. You can't let her keep harassing you like this." I knew she was right. I had to take action. I decided to confront Jamie one last time, to tell her face to face that she needed to stop. I called her and arranged to meet her at a public place, a coffee shop downtown. I brought David with me for support. When Jamie arrived, she looked even worse than the last time I had seen her. Her clothes were disheveled, her hair was a mess, and her eyes were bloodshot. "Mark, thank God you came," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm so glad to see you. Jamie the first told you to stop calling me," I said, my voice firm. "I'm not going to take you back. It's over. Please, just leave me alone." "But Mark the first need you," she cried. "I don't know what to do without you." "I'm lost." "That's not my problem, Jamie," I said. "You made your choices. Now you have to deal with them." "But I made a mistake," she wailed. "I regret everything. Please, just give me another chance." "No, Jamie," I said. "I'm not going to give you another chance. I've moved on. I'm happy, and I'm not going to let you ruin that for me." I stood up to leave. "Fine!" Jamie screamed, her face contorted with rage. "If you're not going to help me, then I'll make you pay. You'll regret this, Mark. You'll see." She stormed out of the coffee shop, leaving me and David staring after her in stunned silence. "That was intense," David said. "I think you need to get a restraining order, Mark. She's not going to let this go easily." I knew he was right. Jamie was spiraling out of control. I had to protect myself and Sarah. I went to the police station the next day and filed for a restraining order against Jamie. I hoped that would be enough to stop her. But I was wrong. The restraining order was granted, which meant Jamie was legally prohibited from contacting me or coming within a certain distance of my home or workplace. For a brief period, there was a sense of relief. The phone calls stopped. I could finally breathe again. But this peace was short-lived. One morning, I woke up to find my car vandalized. The tires were slashed, the windows were smashed, and the word useless was spray painted across the hood in bright red letters. My heart sank. I knew immediately who was responsible. I called the police, and they came to investigate. They took pictures, dusted for fingerprints, and filed a report. But they told me that without concrete evidence, there wasn't much they could do. I installed security cameras around my house, hoping to deter Jamie from further acts of vandalism. A few days later, I received a package in the mail. It was a photograph of Sarah, with her eyes X'd out in black marker. Scrawled across the back of the photo were the words, "She's next." I was terrified. This was no longer just about me. Jamie was threatening Sarah. I went back to the police and showed them the package. They took the threat seriously this time. They assigned a detective to the case and increased patrols around my house and Sarah's apartment. I felt like I was living in a constant state of paranoia. I was afraid to leave my house, afraid to go to work, afraid to be alone. Sarah was equally shaken. She started having nightmares and refused to go anywhere without me. Our relationship was being tested to its limits. One evening, as we were sitting in my living room, watching television, we heard a loud crash outside. I jumped up and ran to the window. I saw Jamie standing in my front yard, throwing rocks at my house. "Jamie, stop it!" I yelled, running outside. "You're going to get arrested. I don't care," she screamed, her eyes wild. "You ruined my life. Now I'm going to ruin yours." She continued to throw rocks, smashing several windows. I tackled her to the ground and held her there until the police arrived. This time, Jamie was arrested. She was charged with violating the restraining order, vandalism, and making terroristic threats. She was taken to jail, and I finally felt a sense of relief. Maybe, just maybe, this nightmare was finally coming to an end. But I was wrong. Jamie's arrest didn't solve anything. In fact, it only made things worse. While she was in jail, she started writing me letters. Long, rambling, delusional letters filled with apologies, accusations, and threats. She claimed that she was innocent, that she was being framed, that I was the one who had ruined her life. She also made veiled threats against Sarah, promising to make her pay for stealing me away. The letters were disturbing, unsettling, and they kept me on edge. I showed the letters to the police, but they said there was nothing they could do. As long as Jamie was in jail, she couldn't physically harm me or Sarah. But I knew that wasn't true. Jamie was capable of anything. Even from behind bars, she could find ways to hurt us. I started having panic attacks. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't concentrate. I was a nervous wreck. Sarah was equally terrified. She was convinced that Jamie would eventually get out of jail and come after us. Our relationship was crumbling under the weight of the stress and fear. We started arguing constantly, blaming each other for what was happening. One night, after a particularly nasty argument, Sarah packed her bags and left. "I can't do this anymore, Mark," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm too scared. I need to protect myself." I tried to stop her, but it was no use. She was gone. I was alone, completely alone. Jamie had succeeded in destroying everything I had built. She had taken away my career, my relationship, my peace of mind. I was back to square one. Useless. That word echoed in my head, taunting me, mocking me. Was Jamie right? Was I destined to be a failure? Was I incapable of achieving happiness? I didn't know. I was lost, broken, and desperate. I contemplated giving up, of simply surrendering to Jamie's madness. But then, I remembered something. I remembered the spark of defiance that had ignited within me when Jamie had first left. I remembered my determination to prove her wrong, to build a new life for myself, and I knew that I couldn't give up. I had to keep fighting. I had to find a way to overcome this nightmare. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I was going to confront Jamie one last time, to end this madness once and for all. I knew that confronting Jamie in jail was a risky move. It could potentially escalate the situation, make her even more unstable. But I was desperate. I had to try something. I contacted Jamie's lawyer and arranged a visit. When I arrived at the jail, I was subjected to a thorough security check. I was searched, scanned, and warned about the consequences of violating the rules. Finally, I was led to a small, sterile room with a thick plexiglass window. On the other side of the window, Jamie was waiting. She looked even worse than the last time I had seen her. Her face was gaunt, her hair was matted, and her eyes were hollow. She was wearing an orange jumpsuit and shackles on her wrists and ankles. "Mark," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "What are you doing here? I came to talk to you, Jamie," I said, my voice as calm as I could manage. "I need you to stop this. You're destroying both of our lives." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "It's not my fault, Mark. You made me do this. You rejected me. You left me with nothing." "I didn't leave you with nothing, Jamie," I said, my voice rising slightly. "You left me. You chose to leave me for someone else. And when that didn't work out, you tried to come crawling back. I was wrong, Mark. I admit it. I made a mistake, but I'm willing to do anything to fix it. Just give me another chance. There are no more chances, Jamie," I said, my voice firm. "You've used them all up. This is over. I need you to accept that and move on." "No," she screamed, banging her fists on the plexiglass. "I'll never give up. I'll never let you be happy with anyone else. You're mine, Mark. You belong to me." Her words sent a chill down my spine. She was completely delusional. She truly believed that she owned me. "I don't belong to you, Jamie," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "I'm my own person, and I deserve to be happy." "You can't control me anymore. I'll make you regret this, Mark," she shrieked. "You'll see. I'll find a way to get out of here, and when I do, I'm coming for you. And for that bitch, Sarah." I flinched at the mention of Sarah's name. I had to protect her, even if she didn't want to be with me anymore. "You're not going to hurt anyone, Jamie," I said, my voice regaining its strength. "You're going to stay in here, where you belong, and you're going to get the help you need." "I don't need help," she screamed. "I need you. You're the only one who can save me." "I can't save you, Jamie," I said. "You have to save yourself. You have to take responsibility for your actions. You have to get help." I stood up to leave. "Don't go, Mark," she begged, her voice cracking. "Please, don't leave me alone." I hesitated for a moment, then turned and walked away. As I walked out of the jail, I felt a mix of emotions: sadness, anger, fear, and a strange sense of relief. I had finally confronted Jamie. I had told her what I needed to say, and I had walked away. But I knew that this wasn't over. Jamie was still a threat, and I had to find a way to protect myself and anyone else she might target. After my visit with Jamie, the first decided to take a closer look at her past. I wanted to understand what had led her to become so unstable, so obsessed. I hired a private investigator to dig into her family history, her childhood, her previous relationships. What the investigator uncovered was shocking. Jamie had a history of mental illness. Her mother had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and had spent years in and out of mental institutions. Jamie herself had shown signs of instability from a young age. She had a pattern of forming intense, possessive relationships, and when those relationships ended, She would become obsessive and even violent. The investigator also discovered that Jamie had a previous restraining order against her from an ex-boyfriend who she had stalked and harassed after he broke up with her. This information painted a disturbing picture of Jamie. She wasn't just a scorned lover. She was a deeply troubled woman with a long history of mental illness and obsessive behavior. I realized that trying to reason with her, trying to appeal to her sense of logic or empathy, was futile. She was simply not capable of rational thought. I also realized that I had been incredibly naive. I had underestimated the extent of her instability, the depth of her obsession. I took the information to the police, hoping that it would help them understand the severity of the situation. The detective assigned to my case was shocked by what he learned. He promised to use the information to strengthen the case against Jamie and to ensure that she received the mental health treatment she needed. But I knew that even with the police involved, I couldn't rely on them to protect me completely. I had to take steps to protect myself. I decided to move. I sold my house and bought a new one in a different city, far away from Jamie. I didn't tell anyone where I was going, not even David. I changed my name, got a new phone number, and started a new job. I wanted to erase my past, to start fresh. I knew that Jamie might eventually find me, but I was determined to be prepared. I installed a sophisticated security system in my new house, took self-defense classes, and kept a close eye on my surroundings. I was living in a state of constant vigilance, but I was also starting to feel a sense of hope. I had taken control of my life. I had escaped Jamie's grasp. I was ready to move on. In my new city, I slowly began to rebuild my life. I focused on my career, excelling in my new role and earning the respect of my colleagues. I also started to explore my new surroundings, discovering hidden gems and making new friends. I even started dating again, hesitantly at first, but eventually finding a woman who I connected with on a deep level. Her name was Emily. Emily was kind, intelligent, and compassionate. She was also understanding of my past and supportive of my efforts to move on. I was careful not to reveal too much about Jamie, but I told Emily enough to explain why I was so guarded and cautious. She listened patiently, without judgment, and assured me that she understood. With Emily, I started to feel safe again. I started to trust again. I started to believe that I could truly find happiness. One evening, as we were sitting on my porch, watching the sunset, Emily turned to me, her eyes filled with love. "You know, Mark," she said, "I think you've finally found peace." I smiled. "I think you're right, Emily," I said. "I think I have." But just as I was starting to feel truly content, something unexpected happened. I received a letter in the mail. It was postmarked from a nearby town, and it was addressed to me under my old name. My heart sank. I knew who it was from. Jamie. The letter was short and simple, but it was enough to send a wave of fear crashing over me. "I know where you are, Mark," it read. "I'm watching you." That was it. No apologies, no accusations, no threats. Just a chilling confirmation that Jamie had found me. I felt like all the progress I had made, all the peace I had found, was suddenly shattered. The shadow of Jamie's obsession had returned, looming over my life once again. I showed the letter to Emily. She was understandably terrified. "This is crazy, Mark," she said, her voice trembling. "You need to call the police. You need to do something." I called the police, but they told me that there wasn't much they could do. The letter didn't contain any explicit threats, so it didn't constitute a crime. They advised me to be vigilant, to install more security cameras, and to report any suspicious activity. I did all of those things, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every time I left my house, I felt like Jamie was lurking around the corner, waiting to strike. I started having nightmares again. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't concentrate. I was a nervous wreck. Emily tried to be supportive, but I could see the fear in her eyes. She was starting to distance herself from me, afraid of becoming a target herself. I knew that I had to do something to protect her, even if it meant pushing her away. I told her that I needed some time alone, that I needed to deal with this situation on my own. She understood, but she was heartbroken. "I don't want to lose you, Mark," she said, tears streaming down her face. "But I can't live like this. I can't live in constant fear." I held her close and kissed her goodbye. "I'll be okay, Emily," I said. "I promise, but I need to do this myself." She left, and I was alone again. But this time, I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to hide. I was going to confront Jamie head-on. I was going to end this once and for all. I knew that Jamie was watching me, so I decided to use that to my advantage. I was going to set a trap for her. I started leaving my house at the same time every day, driving the same route, and parking in the same spot. I wanted her to get comfortable, to feel like she knew my routine. I also started leaving small clues that I knew she would find: a note on my car, a discarded coffee cup, a newspaper with a highlighted article about me. I wanted her to think that I was oblivious, that I had no idea she was there. Meanwhile, I was working with the police to coordinate a plan to catch her. They agreed to set up surveillance around my house and to be on standby to arrest her when she made her move. I knew that this was a risky plan. If Jamie realized what I was doing, she could become even more dangerous. But I was willing to take the risk. I was tired of running. I was tired of hiding. I was tired of living in fear. I wanted my life back. One night, as I was driving home from work, I noticed a car following me. It was a dark sedan with tinted windows. I knew it was Jamie. I kept my cool and continued driving, following my usual route. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, but I tried to remain calm. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw Jamie's car parked down the street. She got out of the car and started walking towards me. This was it. I took a deep breath and got out of my car. "Jamie," I said, my voice firm. "I knew you were watching me." She stopped in her tracks, her eyes wide with surprise. "Mark?" she said, her voice trembling. "What are you doing?" "I'm ending this, Jamie," I said. "I'm not going to let you control my life anymore." "But Mark, I love you," she cried. "I just want to be with you." "You don't love me, Jamie," I said. "You're obsessed with me, and that's not love." I could see the anger building in her eyes. She was losing control. "You're going to regret this, Mark," she said, her voice dripping with venom. "You're going to pay for rejecting me." She reached into her purse and pulled out a knife. My heart skipped a beat. This was it. This was the moment I had been dreading. But I wasn't going to back down. I stood my ground, ready to defend myself. Just then, the police sirens wailed in the distance. Jamie's eyes widened with fear. She knew she had been caught. She turned to run, but it was too late. The police cars surrounded her, blocking her escape. The officers jumped out of their cars and tackled her to the ground. They wrestled the knife out of her hand and placed her under arrest. I watched as they led her away in handcuffs, her face contorted with rage and despair. It was over. Finally, it was over. Jamie was taken into custody and charged with aggravated stalking, attempted assault, and violating her restraining order. Given her history and the evidence against her, she was deemed a significant threat and denied bail. The trial was a media circus. The details of our relationship, her obsession, and her increasingly erratic behavior were splashed across newspapers and television screens. The prosecution presented a compelling case, highlighting Jamie's mental instability and her long history of stalking and harassment. Jamie's defense team argued that she was suffering from a mental breakdown and was not responsible for her actions. They painted a picture of a woman driven to despair by heartbreak and rejection. But the jury didn't buy it. After deliberating for several hours, they found her guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to a lengthy prison term, with a recommendation for mandatory psychiatric treatment. I attended the trial, but I didn't testify. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me, of knowing that she still had power over me. After the verdict was announced, I felt a sense of closure that I hadn't felt in years. I knew that Jamie was finally being held accountable for her actions, and that I was finally safe. I moved back to my new city and reconnected with Emily. She was hesitant at first, but she eventually forgave me for pushing her away. She understood that I had been trying to protect her. We started dating again, slowly and cautiously, rebuilding our trust and our love. I also started going to therapy to deal with the trauma I had experienced and to learn how to cope with the lingering fear and anxiety. It was a long and difficult process, but I was determined to heal. I was determined to move on. Years passed. Jamie remained in prison, receiving the psychiatric treatment she desperately needed. I heard through her lawyer that she was showing signs of improvement, that she was finally starting to accept responsibility for her actions. I never contacted her, and she never contacted me. I wanted to keep her in the past, to focus on my future. One day, I received a phone call from a documentary filmmaker who was working on a project about stalking and obsession. He wanted to interview me about my experience with Jamie. I hesitated at first, but then I decided to do it. I wanted to share my story, to help others who might be going through something similar. I sat down for the interview and recounted the events of the past several years. I talked about Jamie, her obsession, her violence, and the impact it had on my life. I also talked about my resilience, my determination to survive, and my eventual triumph over adversity. As I was finishing the interview, the filmmaker asked me one final question. "What would you say to Jamie if you could talk to her one last time?" he asked. I paused for a moment, considering my answer. "I would say thank you," I said. The filmmaker looked surprised. "Thank you?" he said. "Why would you thank her?" "Because she made me stronger," I said. "She made me realize my own worth. She made me appreciate the good things in my life. And she showed me that I'm capable of surviving anything." And then I smiled. The smile that Jamie never thought I would wear again. The smile of a man who had overcome his demons and found peace. The smile of a man who was finally free. That smile, the one she was so certain I wouldn't have after she left, after she called me useless. The one she called me 20 times a day trying to extinguish. That smile was, and still is, my victory.